Mayor and members of the council, the meeting is now being live streamed.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the February 23rd, 2026, 6 p.m. regular joint meeting of the Bell Garden City Council and successor agency to the Community Development Commission. The meeting will now come to order at 6:09 p.m. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting live online through the city's website as noted on the agenda. If any members of the City Council should have a conflict of interest, please announce any item you are recusing yourself from due to a conflict of interest prior to the item being heard. Tonight's invocation will be given by Minister Daniel Anguiano, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Chief Paul Camacho.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. If we can please stand to our feet. Heavenly Father, we come before you, Lord, and we just thank you for this wonderful opportunity that you grant all of us to be here. Father, we just thank you for the breath of life and for your blessings that you've granted over us in this day. I present before you tonight's agenda and every topic on the agenda, Father. Lord, you know the needs of our city, and I pray, Father, as your word says, that silver and gold belong to you, that the resources, God, that our city needs may be available to them. I also pray, Father, for the men and women that protect our nation, Father God. We thank you for the freedom that we enjoy every day, and we just pray, Lord God, that your will may be done in tonight's meeting, Father. I also pray, Father, for the residents of this wonderful city, Lord, that we may guide ourselves, Lord Father, that we may carry ourselves with respect and love, and that together we may be a thriving city. In the name of Jesus, I pray this. Amen.
City Clerk, please call a roll call of the members of the City Council and successor agency.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the council and successor agency, we may have council member Barsina joining us later, but if not, he will be excused unless there's any objection. Councilmember Chavez,
Present.
Councilwoman Sanchez,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Guillen,
Present.
Mayor De La Rosa.
Present.
Thank you.
We will now move forward with presentations. City Manager, please announce the presentations.
Thank you, Mayor De La Rosa. We have two certificates, two recognitions today. The first one is for Lulu Gonzalez and Olga Garcia. If you could please come up here to the podium. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Hi, Lulu. Hola, Olga. Creo que ya saben por qué van a recibir esta carta de aprecio a lo que han hecho ustedes. Les voy a leer la carta en inglés y en un momento daremos los comentarios. The Bell Garden City Council is proud to recognize Lulu Gonzalez and Olga Garcia for exemplifying the true spirit of neighborliness. This remarkable mother and daughter team demonstrated the strength of unity and the power of community by raising over $2,000 to aid and support the Bell Gardens family that recently experienced the tragic loss of two young men. Their selfless efforts reflect genuine compassion, generosity, and leadership. Through their kindness and initiative, they have made a meaningful and lasting difference to the lives of those affected by this hardship. Their actions stand as an inspiring example of community members coming together in order to service others. With sincere appreciation and gratitude, signed by Miguel de la Rosa and the rest of the City Council. Congratulations. I had the pleasure of stopping by that Saturday afternoon. The energy there was amazing. You all hosted this selfless fundraiser And it was amazing seeing the community come together. The line literally wrapped around the block, and it's just amazing what unity can do in moments of hardship. So again, thank you so much, and I appreciate all the hard efforts. I will now open it to the rest of the city council to make any comments.
Mayor, if I may, I want to take this moment and also echo the same sentiments as the mayor. We appreciate, the leadership that you have brought to our community, to our residents. In not only in this endeavor, when it comes to being there for the community, being there for a family that needed support, but what you've done in bringing light to Bell Gardens, right? I think that our council always wants to continually make Bell Gardens better, bring in a better positive view of the city. And it's people like you, it's residents like you, businesses like yours, entrepreneurship spirit that you have that continues to bring that light to our community, right? I know the mayor didn't reference it, but obviously you all are both small business owners, right? You guys run Macario's Coffee, and an incredible product that you've developed. And it was through that endeavor that you were able to fundraise for this family. So I want to make sure that that is recognized. And we, again, truly appreciate your contributions, not only to this family, but to the others that you've also impacted. So with that said, thank you again for your support, and know that your city is always here to support you too. Thank you so much.
When there's tragedy in a community, we don't know how one will react sometimes, right? But seeing people like yourselves within our community being able to raise funds for the families that were affected, I tremendously, just from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for doing that.
Lastly, echoing again, being selfless, I always say, is an act of love, community, and thank you for that. I know the family appreciate it very much. Thank you. It means so very much, and endless success to you and your business.
Thank you so much again from the bottom of our hearts. Now we'll open up the podium for any comments, and afterwards we'll take a picture with you.
Of course. Well, I just want to say thank you guys so much for this recognition. It really does mean a lot. When we started this, we found out about what happened, it was an instant, we have to do this. And again, thank you again for the recognition. But dozens of people sent me messages saying how praising us. Thank you so much for doing this. You guys are wonderful. But my response was always the same. It is not I, but Christ who lives in me. And that's what scripture says. And during his ministry, Christ taught us to love your neighbor as yourself. And it is not something out of this world that we were doing, but rather obedience to Christ. And Makarios means blessed in Koine Greek. And so we want to bless our city. There's like this cliche thing that says, what would Jesus do? But honestly, that is so true. Like, what would Jesus do in a time of destruction and anxiety and loss? And I think, thank you for saying, bring in light, because that's what Christ brought, was light into the world. And it's what we believe, and it's what we hope that everybody understands, that it's not just the business, it's being here for our community. We have Dunkin', we have, Starbucks, but those companies are not going to come save our community. It is us that we can bring our community forward. Thank you for saying that. And I just want to thank you guys so much that, again, it is not us, but rather doing the work of our God. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I just want to say that we don't want to be a business that just want to benefit from the community, but which we want to help. Like if there is another emergency or something that happened, we want to help. We are part of the community, and we love our community.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Now in this moment, we'll come forward and take an image.
Mayor, if I may. I'd also like to recognize one of my commissioners that's also here, Carlos Jose Barrera. He's the vice chair for the Planning Commission. I don't think the commission has a chair at the moment, so I know he's been serving as a temporary chair. So again, thank you for his contributions too.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And up next, City Manager, will you please announce the next presentation?
Yes, thanks again, Mayor De La Rosa. The next item is a proclamation recognizing the month of March as Women's History Month. I'll turn it back over to you, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And for this proclamation, I'll hand it over to Mayor Pro Tem Guillen.
Okay, I'll go ahead and read. A proclamation in honor of Women's History Month. Whereas Women's History Month has been recognized since 1987, celebrating and honoring the extraordinary achievements of women of every race, class, and ethnic background, and to promote the many economic, culture, and social contributions women have made to the growth and strength of our nation. Whereas throughout history, despite hardship, exclusion, and discrimination, women have strived and sacrificed for equal access and full inclusion in communities across the nation, fighting for and securing equal rights and opportunities as champions of voting rights, reproductive freedom, abolition, civil rights, suffrage, and labor justice. Whereas these women have opened the doors of opportunity for subsequent generations of dreamers and doers, community leaders, elected leaders, educators, first responders, service members, doctors, scientists, child care providers, innovators, entrepreneurs, and essential workers in every industry. Whereas, despite significant progress, women continue to face systemic barriers to full and equal participation in our economy and society, including disparities in economic security, healthcare, and caregiving responsibilities, especially for those who perform critical work, including those who care for our children and our families, who are too often overlooked, underpaid, and undervalued. Whereas the full participation of women is fundamental to a thriving democracy, and the strength of our community depends on ensuring that every person has the opportunity to contribute to our shared growth and prosperity. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Miguel de la Rosa, Mayor of the City of Bell Gardens, with the City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of March as Women's History Month in Bell Gardens and encourage all citizens to celebrate the exceptional women in their lives and our country. And here's the certificate.
For the record, before we proceed, Mayor, I just want to ensure that we have for the record that Councilmember Marco Barcena joined the meeting at 6:21. Thank you.
Thank you so much, City Clerk. All right. We will now begin with item number 6.1 at this time, and I will open public hearing at 6:23 p.m. City Manager, will you please introduce this item?
Yes, thanks again, Mayor De La Rosa. This item here is the consideration approval of a resolution doing a number of things, declaring a fiscal emergency, calling a special municipal election to present voters with a ballot measure to increase the city's sales tax, along with other election-related actions, that being the primary one, the sales tax. First reading approval of a related ordinance codifying the proposed increase, and that would be subject to voter approval. I will turn it over to Manuel Carrillo, our Director of Finance Administrative Services, to provide a presentation for this public hearing. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. O'Kelly. We're just waiting for the presentation. Thank you. Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, this evening we will be, oh, did we lose it again? There we go. Thank you so much. This evening we'll be presenting a public hearing to consider a resolution to declare a fiscal emergency and place a 1/4% local transaction and use tax measure on the June 2nd, 2026 ballot, and first reading approval of ordinance for a proposed increase subject to voter approval. As part of this public hearing, we will be presenting a few key points as it pertains to the proposed local transactions and use tax measure. We will discuss the following: the city's financial challenges, the measure's impact by helping to keep resources in the city of Bell Gardens, and the city voters will decide if the tax measure is ultimately approved. One key area of concern is the city's ability to continue to provide critical services to the Bell Gardens community. Now, despite the city's strong record of fiscal stewardship, including responsible budgeting, service prioritizing, and efficiency improvements, continued increases in the cost of emergency response, public safety staffing, equipment upgrades, and community programs have made it increasingly difficult to sustain core services at current levels and to improve infrastructure such as City Hall, the police department, public facilities, and parks without any additional revenue. Another item of concern is the projected card room revenue shortfall for fiscal year 25-26. For fiscal year 25-26, the city of Bell Gardens is projecting an approximate $2 million shortfall in card room revenue through the end of the fiscal year. The proposed measure helps to keep resources within the city of Bell Gardens. 100% of the funds generated from the tax measure will be spent in Bell Gardens. 2% combined county and local sales tax cap, unless a special exemption is granted by state legislature. 1.25% of the sales tax cap is consumed by the county for transportation and homelessness. 0.25 or 1/4 of the max sales tax can be raised within Bell Gardens. Now, if a sales tax measure is passed by the county or another agency, the remaining 1/4% will be absorbed and the city will lose out. At this point, other local cities have or are planning to pass measures to keep resources within their local communities. Bell Gardens voters will decide if the tax measure is ultimately approved. City Council will decide to declare fiscal emergency and place the tax measure on the ballot. Bell Gardens residents will determine if the tax measure is approved. A simple majority of Bell Gardens voters is needed for the measure to pass. The tax measure is estimated to generate approximately $1.2 million for the city of Bell Gardens. And if approved, the new tax rate would take into effect on October 1st of 2026. And of course, as part of this, annual reporting requirements are part of the process. Now, to summarize our key points, Bell Gardens has financial challenges that require additional revenue resources to address them. The tax measure is estimated to generate $1.2 million and help towards addressing the city's financial challenges. 100% of the revenue generated will stay in Bell Gardens. Actions by the county or other regional agencies could divert tax revenue outside of Bell Gardens. And Bell Gardens voters will determine if the tax measure is approved. Again, a simple majority of voters is needed the measure to pass. It is recommended that the City Council, 1, adopt Resolution 2026-20 of the Bell Gardens City Council declaring a fiscal emergency within the meaning of Article 13C of the California Constitution, calling and giving notice of a June 2nd, 2026 special election for the submission of a ballot measure to Bell Gardens voters, increasing the city's 1% transaction and use tax rate to 1.25%, requesting consolidation of said special election with the county administrator's election of the same date, requesting that the Los Angeles County Register Recorder, county clerk, provide specific election administrative services, and setting priorities for filing written arguments and rebuttals regarding the ballot measure and directing preparation of an impartial analysis. And second, first approve reading of Ordinance 964 of the City of Bell Gardens to increase the existing transactions and use tax rate from 3/4 to 1%, and making such other administrative amendments and updates requested by the California Department of Tax and Administration. That does conclude our presentation. If any questions that council might have on the topic.
Yes. Mayor, if I may. For the 1.2 million that's to be generated, how would we see that periodically or?
So typically, county does provide quarterly payments to the city, depending on, so for in this case, the first rate change would be October of 21st of 26. So we would see, so the first payment for the October through December period, that's when we would see the first increase of that amount.
So it did state that there could be a possibility of the county or another agency putting a similar item on the ballot as well. How would it look like when both items are on a ballot? Would one supersede the other, or how would this look like?
Mayor, with us is Rich Padilla. He'll be able to provide some detail on that.
It's Richard Padilla. I work with Stephanie Vasquez. I'm one of her colleagues, and I did work on the tax measure here. There are a couple of different scenarios that need to be played out here, and a lot of them are contingent upon whether or not the County of Los Angeles obtains special legislation for its current measure. They have indeed placed a measure on the ballot. They did so, I think, about a week and a half ago, maybe a week ago. The one factor that's up in the air at this point is whether they're going to get special legislation. There is some effort in the works to get special legislation, but we will not know until about a week after the deadline to place this on the ballot measure. So the whole purpose of the special legislation, and if you'll bear with me because I know this can get a little confusing, think of the sales tax as kind of like a column, and then there's different layers. There's the statewide layer, which is the primary chunk that most of us pay. It's about 7 and something %. But then on top of that layer, there are these local transactions and use taxes. Under the Transactions and Use Tax Act, cities and counties can share a little 2% sliver above the base rate. They share that, but they cannot exceed that cumulatively. So at present, there is about a 0.5% within this jurisdiction that is unclaimed. It's not claimed by the county just yet. It's not claimed by the city just yet. If the county does not get special legislation, and if their measure wins, they would encroach on that remaining 0.5%. They would basically take it. In fact, if they had done this measure earlier at the last election and had won, we would be locked out of that 0.5% forever because we would have to get special legislation. If they do get special legislation, the state does this trick where it essentially says, county, you can add your additional tax rate, but it will not count towards the 2%. So it leaves the 0.5% that is available for the city in place. So that's the $1 million question right now, is we don't know whether or not it will be in play or whether we'll be competing with them for it. If there is a scenario where they do not get the special legislation, so now they're competing with us for that remaining 0.5%, and if both measures were to prevail, the only answer I can give you right now is that the state of California has no idea what to do. And they have signaled that what they will do in such event is they will appeal to the California Attorney General. The California Attorney General does issue written legal opinions that have legal weight and authority. And the reason we know this is because the same thing happened in 2024 up in the county of Sonoma. The county of Sonoma and a city within Sonoma both had these competing transactions and use tax measures. They both won, and the state had no idea who should control. What was interesting, though, is that at the 12th hour, the legislature stepped in, created special legislation, and mooted the entire issue. So the Attorney General never had to weigh in. Whether they will do it again this time, I have no idea. I have heard from some sources that given the political climate right now, given concerns about a lot of other things, the legislature might not be inclined to sign it, or the governor might not be inclined to sign it. I do think personally the track record has been pretty good for the county to get these special legislations. This wouldn't be the first time they've gotten an exemption for their particular layer, but it isn't a certainty at this point. I know these are tough decisions, but I would simply say if there's an opportunity to secure that, if your taxpayers are going to possibly end up paying that 0.5% to somebody, it's better that it be paid to the city that they live in as opposed to the county, which may or may not filter it down to us in some way. I hope that answers the question, or over answered it maybe.
It does. Thank you so much. Any other questions? There are no more questions. We will now move over to public participation for this item. City Clerk, will you please announce the instructions for public participation?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to speak on public hearing item 6.1 as listed on the agenda. We didn't receive any written comments. We do have one person joining us virtually, but does not have their hand raised. And we didn't have any public comment cards.
If there's no objection by the members of the City Council successor agency, I will close public participation for public hearing item number 6.1. And if there's no further council member questions or comments, I will now close the public hearing at 6:35 p.m. I would like to entertain a motion to adopt resolution number 2026-20 and introduce the first reading to ordinance number 96.4.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Bárcena and a second by Councilmember Dr. De Leon Sanchez. City Clerk, will you please conduct a roll call vote?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Members of the council and successor agency Bárcena,
Yes.
Councilmember Chavez.
Aye.
Councilwoman Sanchez,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Guillen, and Mayor De La Rosa.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. We will move to public participation for items not listed on the agenda. Public participation is now open. City Clerk, please announce the instructions for public participation.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to speak on items not listed on the agenda. We didn't receive any written comments or any hands raised virtually, and we didn't receive any public comment cards.
Mayor, if we may return real quick, just for further direction on the special election. Richard had one more component that we'll need direction from the council on.
Yeah, I neglected to mention that one of the opportunities you have as a council is to be able to write the ballot argument in support of the measure. The council has priority to do so. Typically, what will happen is that one of you will, the council will maybe delegate one or two of you to draft the letter. If you feel you want to review it as a group one more time before it's published, you can do that. You do have a couple of meetings, I think, before it. I believe
We have one.
Yeah, it's due on the 12th, so I think we have at least one meeting to do so. So I would ask at this time if you were inclined to give direction on whether you wanted some number of you to maybe work about authoring the ballot argument in favor. That's your one opportunity to actually engage in some level of advocacy as a body. So.
Thank you so much. Is any member of the City Council interested in being part of this draft letter?
I'd like to be a part of it, Mayor. I'm curious to see sort of what's involved in creating the argument.
Yeah, I believe it's a 500-word limit. It's your opportunity to just say whatever you want about the argument. I mean, it's really a rare opportunity to actually, be an advocate for it, explain to the community why you believe, or why you as a body believe the tax is a necessary thing at this time. I will separately be charged with, or our office, I should say, will be charged with separately drafting an impartial analysis, which basically just explains to the public the very technical mechanics of how it works. So that will be handled by the city attorney by statute. But this is your opportunity to just basically explain it to the community and explain to the community why this is a worthwhile thing. So.
And just to clarify, it would be two of us working on it, but it would come from the entire body.
Yeah, I've seen it done different ways. I mean, ideally, I think in the classic way, you can have up to 5 signatures on the ballot argument. So theoretically, all 5 of you would sign it. But I've seen it done different ways. But you as a body have priority for it, and you can decide amongst yourselves how you want to structure that.
Richard, I think for the council's perspective and for staff, how much interaction as far as staff helping to draft an item?
I think as long as it's just kind of limited to explaining just the technicalities, and I don't think there would be anything wrong with us explaining that there is a word limit and how you count the words and what things you maybe can't say, although you have pretty broad latitude. I don't think there would be a problem with just spending some minimal effort on that. But it really is supposed to be an organic document that comes from you as the elected officials of the city, so.
I'm thinking perhaps maybe we can do like a small, working group, maybe create some sort of template, and then from there, or if your office already has some sort of templates that we can kind of bounce off ideas of. And then the idea would be that we bring that back before the next council meeting, before the deadline, and then all of us unanimously can sign off on it, assuming that we're all obviously in support of it.
I mean, I think that'd be the ideal way to do it so
The-
that there's consensus.
The only thing is that we can't write it because we're doing the impartial analysis, so it has to come from the council.
I meant more so in terms of making sure that what we're saying is legal.
Right, yeah, I think we can certainly instruct you on how to stay within the word limits and, maybe staying, there may be theoretically some phrasing that is not permitted, but we could certainly advise on that, but it has to be your message. It can't be our message. So.
I think
If
as
I'm-
long as we have some guidelines, that would be great, and
Yeah.
I'd be open to collaborate with one
Okay.
of you to do that as well.
Very good. Okay. So is that the direction, I guess, or?
So we have the team, or is it gonna be two of you, or just so we're all on the same page, Mayor?
Probably
Any-
want to keep it at 2 so you don't have a Brown Act issue.
And then we'll bring it back for the next council meeting for approval from everybody.
So far, Councilmember Chavez has interest in drafting a letter as well. Any other, and Councilmember Dr. De Leon Sanchez. Perfect. So, the direction would, it'll be amended to the,
Yeah, direct Councilmember Chavez and Councilmember Dr. Leon Sanchez to prepare the argument and then present it to the council as a whole to vote on at the next council meeting.
perfect.
Question, and I had a question in regards to more so I don't want to say the logistical side of an actual, ballot measure, because I remember, I think we did this back in 2020 with Measure A. There was a whole publicity that was done about getting it out there, the campaign. I mean, something as simple as choosing the letter that's going to be picked, vote on, whatever measure stuff. Who decides all that?
Well, you can. The resolution that I did draft just put BG, but it can be another letter configuration if you want. The truth of the matter is the letters are based on a first come, first served basis. The county will issue a notice some number of days after the deadline. It's literally a form and they ask you to fill out your top 3 choices. We could certainly indicate, we would welcome any direction you have on what top 3 choices you would like us to select, but it's not a guarantee. It's kind of up to the county in a lot of ways.
And the way the reso is currently, it's BG and 2 other options that staff would find in the event that BG is not available. But if you all want to provide direction as to those other 2 choices, then you can provide that direction as well.
When is that deadline?
Well, we have to have actually the letter designation I think is after March 6th. I don't have the
City
precise date,
Clerk,
but
would you have that answer?
Yeah, I'm looking it up right now. It looks like it is. March 11th.
they have is there at least one more meeting before then? Okay.
Correct.
So just for council's perspective, I think from the staff, kind of as we looked at it 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and then looked at it, and kind of the way that the order goes, the thought was BG because we use the term BG, if not BG, AA, for a couple reasons. One, the last measure was Measure A, so this will be sort of the second Measure A, Measure AA. Also, well, on a normal election, on the city part of it, the more A you have, the further you are up at the top. So there's a better chance that the voter will actually see it before maybe just giving up on the ballot. Maybe not an issue on a special election because this would be the only city item on that ballot. But the order staff was thinking would be BG, AA. If those weren't available, AB, which is kind of, again, a follow-up to a Measure A. It's sort of you could do a Measure B, I guess is sort of a third or fourth one as well.
And the only thing I would stress is that at the end of the day, it is kind of the county's call because it's a first come, first serve. So we could lose out to somebody else, but it's not a given at this point. So
Do we know what the county picked?
I think it was the 11th. Is that
I meant what letter did they pick?
for theirs?
Like the letter
I do
for
not
their
know
ballot?
what their
You don't
letter-
have it?
We don't know any of the
Yeah.
designation of the letters because there's a deadline to submit your preference. So after, you won't know until after that date.
Afterwards, yeah.
But they didn't submit recommendations such as we did with BG or AA or anything like
No,
that.
they haven't, and we won't know until after the deadline.
So I would think, obviously, I think if everybody likes BG as the primary, I think it would be probably illogical for anybody else to have.
And we'll
an
probably
item
get
that's
that. I think
PG.
it's a safe bet. We'll get that.
And it would be the only city item that would be on this ballot is going to be the sales tax measure. So it would be after the county sales tax measure and the way
Okay.
the order goes. So the county goes first, the cities go second. It's only one city.
Special district after that.
So I don't know, would now be appropriate time to ask for direction on the order of the potential, letters?
It'll
We
help
can.
us filling out the form, so we're not, maybe guessing too hard. But
Well, I mean, I know city manager mentioned already two of them, right? With BG and then AA and then AB. Okay.
Or in lieu of an AB, maybe just a B, because it's the second sales tax measure.
okay, sounds like we have discretion for a couple of choices then.
And I mean, it would be great so that I could submit that to them tomorrow,
Oh,
because I have to complete the form and submit it to them. So if you do want to designate your primary, secondary, and your third options, so that way it'll be something it's first come, first serve. So the sooner we get it in.
Need a motion at this time?
We have it on the resolution as BG, so unless you guys want something different than BG, then we'll move with BG for the first one, and then for the second one, AB was the plan, which the discretion is already provided for in the resolution, but unless there's an objection to AB.
AA and
There's
AA.
Sorry,
AA
AA,
and AA.
yeah, BG and AA.
Okay, so we got it.
Because we don't like get like, vote on yes on measure X or something like that. It's like, I don't know. And I'll tell you, there's like a science to all of this too, right? Like,
So
there's
that's
data and
where,
stuff.
that's kind of where that's the way the orders come through, is based on,
Yeah.
again, it's more important on a November election because you're competing against other things. So you definitely want in the A's group to get you
Yeah.
further up on the city stuff. It may be less important in this one. So, if there's a concern with AA, an interesting comment.
Did you want to select the third?
AB was the
Third,
third.
AB. And I will say that there are other cities that are also requesting for this, so it would be a good opportunity to stand out.
Probably good to get it in sooner than rather than later. Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely.
And other cities potentially pick BG as well?
They could. I mean, it could be their order of preference. So I think if we beat them to it, that's better. Although I would be surprised if anybody else outside of BG picked BG, but you never know.
So far, 2 cities have already submitted their requests for consolidation for the June elections, so we would be the third so far.
And there's another city I'll be presenting at tomorrow.
And I know one of them that submitted is not looking for BG.
Perfect. So just for the record, we provided direction, and as well, we have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 2026-20 and introduce the first reading to ordinance number 964. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, so we had closed public participation on non-agenda items. So now, City Clerk, will you please announce the instructions for public participation for items listed on the agenda?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Excuse me. City members of the public will now have an opportunity to speak on items listed on the agenda. We didn't receive any public comment cards or any written comments, and no one's participating virtually with their hands raised.
If there's no objection by the members of the City Council, I would close public participation. And now we'll move over with committee updates. Does any member of the council wish to report any information from their committees?
Yes, going back to the JPA, we went to Sacramento last week. We were able to meet with multiple legislators, from our assembly members to senators from other districts as well. Overall, the response was positive in supporting the card room, supporting the cities, and even cities that don't host a card room in their city. We're also advocating for the employees, because we have many employees within our casinos that are part of other districts, other cities. And so that's also going to impact them. The way that we were lobbying this is that, yes, as of right now, it is an immediate impact to our community, right? But if we look at it, it's not only based in our community, then it becomes regional, because I talked about the employees, right? And not aside from regional, it becomes statewide. Why? There's over 82 card rooms up and down California. Okay, and how many employees do those card rooms have? If Blackjack goes away, the rotation changes, you know, these regulations that the AG did, then we're gonna have a lot of people unemployed. What is that gonna look like for California? That's gonna look like a lot of people signing up for CalFresh, signing up for unemployment. And so right now, with the budget the way that it is in California, they don't have the means to provide all of those resources to set people that currently have jobs. And so we were trying to scale it overall to show the legislators the negative impact it's gonna have all across California. And I'm lucky to say that we got, you know, a lot of people on our side being very supportive. I don't want to disclose their names at this time, but there is a letter that's going to be signed that's going to have everybody's names. So that's my report.
Thank you so much for your advocacy. Any other members of the council wish to provide an update? And if not, we'll move on to item number 10, which is the city manager report. City manager, will you please conduct your report?
Yes, thanks again, Mayor De La Rosa. Just want to mention on February 12th, Thursday, we had our open art space at Veterans Park from 6 to 8 p.m., which we generally have every Thursday. Friday on February 13th was the weekly art and yard sale. There was an 1 hour early component for special Valentine's Day craft fair piece of that art and yard sale. February 16th was President's Day. As always, just want to thank everybody in the city of Bell Gardens that still work that day. Our offices are closed, but we still have police department, recreation community services, public works. Pretty much a piece of every department is still running on every day. So thanks everybody who was still working that day. February 20th, Friday was the art and yard sale. That was last Friday with the free farmers market. The art and yard sale part was canceled due to rainy and muddy conditions. So that happens once in a while. Saturday, February 21st was the monthly family food distribution at Veterans Park. That goes on the third Saturday of the month. This Wednesday, February 25th at Ross Hall, which is at Veterans Park, there'll be a neighborhood watch meeting to discuss various public safety concerns. The Special Investigations Unit will be doing a presentation. Reminder this Thursday, is every Thursday, is the art space. Friday is the art and yard sale. This coming Saturday at Ross Hall at 10:30 a.m., the Community Family Services Center is having another financial literacy workshop. This one is pretty basic. It's for saving and budgeting. March 6th at that art and yard sale, there will be the farmers market, so there's food available there as well. On March 7th, Saturday, we have our annual 5K event. So this must be about year 5 or 6, depending, and that's been very successful in getting people out there of all ages and of all abilities. Also, just coming up before the next council meeting, March 8th, is daylight savings time. So we're starting to move into spring and summer. As always, the consent agenda includes items that are of interest to residents, businesses, and stakeholders. And considering some of the financial discussion that is going on the public hearing and at a discussion item that's coming up here in a few minutes, we have an amendment with our agreement to our building inspection and plan check services consultant to make sure that the fee and the revenue sharing component of that lines up and makes the most sense for the city. We also have the outfitting of a police vehicle. The police vehicle was grant funded by state cannabis grant monies, and the outfitting is also funded by state cannabis grant funding, no general fund there. We also have an agreement with the county sheriff. They're seeking to recover some costs for any police recruit training that the city does. We also have an item to generate some revenue here, which is the leasing of unused pumping rights for the water system. So basically, as the well is offline and the city's water system is buying service water, we're able to lease on an annual basis the pumping rights from the basin. Generates $100,000 that goes into the water system, so helps bolster that system. We're also soliciting bids for slurry seal of 22 different street locations in the city of Bell Gardens. It's about 350,000. It's not funded by the general fund. It's Measure R and Measure M funding. We're also rebidding for the construction of the Ford Park Playground and the new restroom. That'll be about a $2 million project, of which approximately 15% of it will be general funded, but the other 85% will be funded by Prop A, and Prop 68. So with that, I'll thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much for the report, City Manager. We will now move over to consent calendar. Does any member of the City Council wish to pull an item from this for separate discussion? And if not, may I have a motion to introduce and approve items numbers 11.1 through 11.10 of the consent calendar?
Well,
Second.
Thank you so much. We have a motion and a second. City Clerk, will you please conduct a roll call vote?
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the council and successor agency, Barsina,
Yes.
Councilmember Chavez,
Aye.
Councilwoman Sanchez,
yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Guillen,
Yes.
and Mayor De La Rosa.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right. Moving on to discussion items numbers 12.1 through 12.3. City Manager, will you please announce the discussion for item 12.1?
Yes, thanks again, Mayor De La Rosa. This item's the local commission's appointment list. It's staff's recommendation that the council review the appointments list and by motion, remove commissioners or make appointments to posted vacancies. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. No updates on my end.
Yes, I'd like to appoint someone to the Planning Commission, Gabriela Gomez.
Perfect. I'll do the motion.
Second.
Perfect. City Clerk, will you please conduct a roll call vote?
Yes, thank you. Members of the council successor agency, Barsina,
Yes.
Councilmember Chavez,
Aye.
Councilwoman Sanchez, Mayor Pro Tem Guillen,
Yes.
and Mayor De La Rosa.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thanks so much. City Manager, will you please announce discussion item number 12.2?
Yes, thanks again, Mayor De La Rosa. This item was requested by Councilmember Barsina, probably about 4 to 6 weeks ago. It was also requested by council as well at that time to provide an update on the art and yard sale program. So that when you hear me mention as part of the city manager report, and you all know it's a popular program. So with that, I'll turn it over to our Recreation Community Services Director, Liz Nava, to provide a presentation and an update on the program. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. O'Kelly. Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Okay, we got our report up here. This item before you is just a quick update on the art and yard sale program that the city hosts every Friday at Veterans Park. So just by means of background, the city's municipal code 5.32.10 allows 5 garage sales per year for residents to participate in without the need to procure a permit. This is helpful for many residents. However, a lot of the residents express some concern to staff and to council about their inability to participate in garage sales during garage sale weekend for various reasons. Some do not have access to a yard or garage. Some live in an area that don't receive high foot traffic, and so they're not able to do well if they were able to have garage sales, and some may not have permission from their landlord. So there's an array of reasons that residents were not able to participate. And so from their concerns, council gave direction to staff to create a pilot program called the Art and Yard Sale Program. So this program is specifically for Bell Gardens residents to sell items that you would normally see at an yard sale or a garage sale. They have to be handmade, personal items, crafts. There is an art component, so artists who created their own art could come to the park and sell as well. Used goods and other personal items. The program, up until this month, takes place every Friday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Veterans Park. And just to explain, in order to keep the spirit of the program, the sale of food, beverages, the resale of commercially purchased products, multi-level marketing sales, and direct sale business transactions are not allowed. This is really for those residents who don't have an opportunity to participate in an at-home garage sale, so we wanted to make sure it stayed that way. So here's some pictures. As you can see, the program has grown vastly in popularity. We started with, I think, about 12 interested residents, and it grew rapidly. We have not just the residents who set up their booth every Friday, but a lot of community members come out and participate. They take a look at the different things that are available for purchase, clothes, art. We have a gentleman who grows and sells plants, so that's also allowed. And we've expanded this year. The mayor gave us direction to incorporate craft sales during holidays. So we hosted our first one in February. And so there's a picture of the mayor participating in that as well. But starting in March, in order to address the long list of participants waiting to get into the program, we're restructuring the program to accommodate more people and get everyone off of the waiting list. So first of all, the time, we've been requested to move it up an hour by most of the participants. And so the time will change starting in March to 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So we currently have 90 spaces available, but what we're going to do is we're breaking them into 2 groups. So we're going to have 2 groups of 80 that rotate every 2 weeks per month. So group A will have 2 weeks to sell their items for the first 2 weeks of the month, and then group B has 2 weeks to sell their items the second 2 weeks of the month. And then on the months that have a fifth Friday, that Friday will be used if this, like, for example, last week we canceled, that 5th Friday will be used for those people who were canceled to be able to have an additional day to sell. So we said we have 80 spaces, but there's 90 available. So what we're doing in order to accommodate people who'd like to come on board, but maybe don't want to commit to the constant 2 weeks every month, we're going to do 10 day passes. So 10 of those 90 spaces are available for day passes for residents who are interested but don't want the commitment of the full year. So they're like the non-regular participants. Additionally, we're going to extend the program to include Sundays of garage sale weekend. So garage sale weekend is the 3rd Sunday in April. I have it on one of my slides here, but there's 5 times a year that is the city issued garage sale weekend. So our art and yard sale program will expand to include Sundays of those weekends. So non-regular participants will have another 5 opportunities a year to participate. And then lastly, we're going to incorporate holiday craft fairs throughout the year as well. So just a little video that gives us a plug for our, you might have seen it already, but I'm going to go ahead and play it. I hope. Does it work? Maybe, maybe not. Okay. If it doesn't work, we did post this video on Instagram, so you can jump onto the recreation page and take a look at this video, just letting the community know of our new program structure and hours taking place starting in March.
Hey, Bell Gardens, join us every Friday for the Art and Yard Sale program. With a new time frame of 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. starting in March, the community gathers at the park to shop for a variety of goods. Join us as we bring the yard sale experience to the park. Whether you're looking for some new clothing accessories or a painting to add to your walls, there's a variety of fun shopping to be done. Hope to see you there.
And that is our new time.
Hey, Bell Gardens, join us every Friday for the Art and Yard Sale program. With a new time frame of 10 a.m.
Okay, wait. I need to get out of it. In case you missed it the first time, I wanted you to see it again. So the change in the program, there's no direct fiscal impact to the budget. And staff recommends that council receive and file this report. That concludes my report, and I'm available for any questions that council might have.
First off, the energy there on that Friday was great. Just overall, the enthusiasm from the residents, the participants, the vendors, and the people who were shopping around, it was amazing. Um, and as I was walking through the pathway, I did get multiple concerns about like the wait list that it's been uh, prolonged for about 2 years now, and I'm happy to see that there's now a solution in place to allow multiple, well, those who want to commit every week versus with those that not necessarily wanting to commit for a weekly basis. So it's great. Thank you so much, Liz. I appreciate it, and yeah, I'm excited for what awaits.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Director Liz. I really appreciate the update. I did ask for this item because I actually recently went to the art and yard sale with a practical purchase in mind. I needed to buy some plates and like a few other dishes and just random things, right? Well, what do you know? I found most of what I was looking for. So this is like a real legitimate service. And by the way, I got it for like cheap. So I recommend it. Like it really, like if you go out there, you're gonna find something you need. So it's like a real service to our community. Not to mention that they get to interact with each other, they get to know their neighbors, and just generally we've come such a long way from when we started. And I'm happy to see what you guys have planned for the program. The Sunday thing is a big deal, right? We do get some people selling arts and then the plants, but it's a limited amount of people because most of them are busy working during the week. But now that we're gonna have it on a Sunday, I see this as a huge opportunity for that other segment of the population that's not available during the weekdays in the morning, for them to really put their stuff out there if they're artists or creators of some type. So I'm excited about that. I didn't even know about this. So thank you, Liz. Thank you, staff, for putting it together. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what people come up with, specifically on those weekends. That's really exciting to me. So thank you.
Any other questions or comments? And if not, I would like to place a motion to receive and file this presentation. May I have a second?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. City Clerk, will you please conduct a roll call vote?
Yes, thank you. And I'm sorry I missed who motioned.
I did the motion.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Members of the council and successor agency, Barcena,
Yes.
Councilmember Chavez.
Aye.
Councilwoman Sanchez.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Guillen
Yes.
and Mayor De La Rosa.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thanks so much. City Manager, will you please announce the next discussion item?
Yes, thank you, Mayor De La Rosa. The next item is an annual item. It's fiscal year 25-26, which we are in the middle of now, or approximately 8 months into. It's a mid-year budget review. We provide information on the general fund revenues, expenditures, fund balance, et cetera. We also request additional appropriations for other projects that are either ongoing or about to start, for which we have not asked for appropriations, particularly from the grant-funded side of things. With that, I'll turn it over to Manuel Carrillo, our Finance and Administrative Services Director. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you again, Mr. O'Kelly. Honorable members of the City Council, this evening we'll be providing a brief overview of our 25-26 mid-year budget performance and projections for the remainder of the fiscal year. Here we have an overview of our card room revenue received going back to fiscal year 21-22 to the current. As we can see, for fiscal year 25-26, card room revenue was adopted at $19,020,000, and based on the actuals for the first 6 months of the year, we were able to project out the remainder of the year based on daily average and the remaining days of operation. As a result, the card room revenue is projected to come in at $17,013,000. This is approximately $2 million below the adopted. Just a side note, the historical card room high is 18.8 million, which was received in fiscal year 22-23. And the historical low is 6.7, which was received in 2021, which is of course during the COVID pandemic. One item I wanted to bring to attention for fiscal year 25-26, revenues may be impacted by the Attorney General's recent actions on gaming regulations.
Manuel, as you leave that open,
Yes.
just referencing back to Dr. De Leon Sanchez's commentary on the Attorney General's action. So there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes, but just to give you an idea, if there was some kind of a, let's say a 25, 30% hit to the card room's activities, that would make that final bar there from 17 million come down to probably in the 11 to 13 million range, somewhere like that. So it'd be a significant drop in those revenues.
Here we revisit the general fund revenue and expenditures adopted for fiscal year 25-26. Both were adopted at 50,060,167 with zero surplus or deficit. Both categories were adopted higher than the prior year 24-25. Here we have the mid-year revised forecast. As previously mentioned, revenues and expenditures were both adopted at 50,060,167 with zero surplus or deficit. Now, based on actuals and projections, revenue is expected to come in higher by 4.1 million, and expenditures are expected to be higher by 6.1 million, resulting in a net reduction in fund balance of approximately 1.98 million for fiscal year 25-26. The increase in both categories is primarily as a result of the final aquatic center expenditures and grant reimbursements, which will be finalized in fiscal year 25-26.
And Manuel, so when Manuel mentions that on the expenditures and the revenues for the aquatic center, if you were to strip those out of there, they happen to equal each other pretty well, right about the $4 to $5 million range. So we would be short about the $2 million. So if you strip those out, it confuses the numbers a little bit, but we want to make sure we show accurate numbers. But otherwise, we would be looking at revenues probably right in the $48 million range, give or take, and expenditures would be in the $50 million range.
Thank you, Mr. Galley. Here we have a more detailed breakdown of the revenue line items that were projected with projected changes through fiscal year 25-26. The most significant changes are in the categories of other revenues. As mentioned previously, this increase is due to the grant reimbursements associated with the aquatic center construction. Other categories with expected increases are motor vehicles in lieu, secured taxes, and building permits. Categories with expected decreases are card room revenues, operating transfers in, as well as projected reductions in add-on sales tax and sales and use tax based on HDL projections and regional analysis. The overall change will result in a projected increase in general fund revenue at year end of about 4.1 million.
And Manuel, I think if just again, sorry to keep interrupting here, but just a couple key bullet points to take away from, we look at our revenue projections. They're the best estimates that are available at the time we put the budget together. Based on economic activity, we utilize a firm called HDL that does analysis for a lot of cities. What you're really seeing, besides the card room issue, is some softness in consumer spending. When you hear that news, you can generally know that that means that'll translate to some degree to the city of Bell Gardens. If people are spending less money generally, that means they spend less money at Bob's Discount Furniture, means they spend less money at all of the businesses within Bell Gardens. No major drop, just what's kind of expected out there. And then on the operating transfers in, that primarily is related to cannabis tax that we're working on. So those are areas that we're continuing to watch. So the Bicycle Club card room revenues, transfers that we're expecting from cannabis tax, and then just general economy having some softness out there, and we're seeing that in our sales tax revenue numbers. Thanks, man.
Thank you, Mr. Keller. Here we have a more detailed breakdown of the expenditure line items where we project changes to the end of 25-26. We project savings in the categories of personnel and contractual services. The categories are expected to surpass budget are department supplies and capital outlays. As mentioned previously, the significant increase in capital outlays is associated with the final aquatic center expenditures for fiscal year 25-26. The overall change will result in projected increase in general fund expenditures at year end of approximately 6.1 million. Here's a recap of the materials provided on the previous slide. As mentioned, the overall increase to general fund expenditures of about 6.1 million for the year. This slide is an overview of anticipated additional appropriation items that will be brought to council through the remainder of the fiscal year. These are capital improvement projects, adjustments overseen by Public Works, totaling an estimated amount of about 601,000 for the remainder of the fiscal year. This next slide represents the budgeted capital improvement projects that are carried over from the prior year, 24-25. As we're aware, capital improvement projects generally are a multi-year endeavor. Now, these are ongoing projects overseen by Public Works, and the carry forward amount for fiscal year 24-25, or from fiscal year 24-25, was about 36.4 million. Here we have an overview of what we project city fund balance to be at 6/30/26. As we can see from the top right corner, the city's fund balance at June 30th, 2025 is projected to be 19.89 million. Now, these are figures that are still pending final audit closeout and completion. The projected change in fund balance for fiscal year 25-26, as previously mentioned, is an approximate reduction of about 1.98 million. This will result in overall projected fund balance for June 30th, 2026 of about 17.9 million. We would also like to point out that the projected 17.9 million, approximately 7.6 of that is what is identified as non-spendable, as these are funds due to the city general fund from the water fund because of operational losses in prior years. And once again, just to reiterate, the projected negative net change in fund balance for fiscal year 25-26 does include all final aquatic center expenditures and reimbursements for the year.
So Manuel, if we leave this slide up for a minute, Manuel's covered revenues, it's money coming in. It's like everybody's personal lives. We have that training Saturday that pretty much talks about the same stuff. This is just in the millions instead of what we're all normally used to dealing with. There's revenues, money comes in, expenditures, money goes out. And what you have left over is usually in your savings account or whatever's left over in your checking account if everything's worked out okay. That fund balance has grown. You can see into 22, 23, 23, 24. It may seem alarming at first as to why the savings account, if you want to call it that, has gone up to 35, 36 million, and it's back down to 17.9, which is roughly where it started around 1920. So what you see there essentially with the sales tax measure that was approved back in 2020, it's about $3.9 million a year. If you roll that forward times about 5 years, it's about $19 million. The city, instead of borrowing money to build an aquatic center and paying interest on that money, basically paid it off with cash. So foregoing what otherwise would have been $10 or $15 million of interest payments that you wouldn't get anything extra for. But also the challenge that it does leave you with is you still have to fund operations and you have to have cash available to pay salaries and to buy equipment and to pay contractors and things of that nature. So this is the number that we watch very closely for a couple of reasons. One, just from overall health, what happens if there was another COVID-19, knock on wood, and the card room closed for, 10 months. If that were to happen today, it would take us about 6 months, 7 months to burn through all of that $10 million that's in cash. You can't spend the other 7 because it's money the water fund owes the general fund. It's an IOU basically, and you can't pay people with that. So this is a number that we watch closely, and kind of going back to the revenue side of things. We have issues with the card room revenue, obviously. We have issues so far with transfers regarding the cannabis tax. Some softness on sales tax, but it's made up for with vehicle taxes and property taxes. So the sales tax measure that was discussed earlier that's being put out there to the voters would really help to bolster any softness or shortfalls in card room revenue, cannabis tax revenue, and then help to make sure that there's still enough cash flow to keep the city operating as we work through things with the card room. So this would be a number we'd be watching very closely. It's 17.9 million. It is a healthy amount for a $50 million general fund, to have about 34% of your money in the general fund. But there is a little bit of a shell game in that 7 million of it is not cash. So there is an item, currently, we have a request for proposals regarding the water system. Part of that process, depending on what the council wants to do and depending on what the voters want to do, would seek to make the general fund whole, for that $7 million. The other way that staff would recommend from a financial perspective to make the general fund whole, barring some kind of a sell of the water system, would be to potentially issue bonds by the water system to pay back the general fund, and then the ratepayers in the water system would have to pay back the $7.6 million with interest over some period of time. So just closely watching that. I want to make sure the council understands that. And then the challenge from the staff side of it, with a cash balance of $10 million, is on a general fund of $50 million. Now it comes down to, when do our revenues come in and when do our expenditures go out? Because expenditures are going out every 2 weeks, every month. The sales tax revenue, as the Mayor Pro Tem asked earlier, comes in on a quarterly basis. Property tax revenue generally comes in every 6 months. Card room revenue comes in every month. So this is something internally that we'll be watching and have to watch more closely than we have had to watch over the last 4 to 5 years, as we were building up a fund balance and a cash reserve there to pay out the aquatic center. So the final thing I would say from it for the council here, I think the thing to be proud of here is you're able to build a $33 million aquatic center for about $16 million. So you doubled the benefit and the value. And you can see that the numbers very easily add up. You could times the extra sales tax by the 5 years, and it happens to equal almost exactly what that aquatic center was. So I think there's some pride to be had in that 5 or 6 years worth of effort that results in an aquatic center that should last 30, 40, 50 years. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Manuel to finish up the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. O'Kelly. And finally, the budget preparation process of fiscal year 26-27 will begin in March. Finance staff will begin to meet with city departments and the city manager's office to review in detail the actuals for fiscal year 25-26 and to begin to identify the operational needs for each department for the upcoming fiscal year. A few key dates to remember. At the Monday, May 11th, 2026 council meeting, staff will present the draft budget for fiscal year 26-27. On Wednesday, May 13th, staff will conduct a community budget workshop at Ross Hall. And finally, at the council meeting on Monday, June 8th, staff will present the city's operating and capital improvements budget for presentation and adoption. And that does conclude our report for this evening. I'll be glad to answer any questions that council might have on this topic.
Thank you so much, Manny, for the thorough presentation, and Mr. O'Kelly for also providing additional context to the numbers. I do have a question in regards to slide, didn't see the slide number, but where we're forecasting the bicycle club fees.
Sure.
Yes.
Revenue?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
And is that figure, is that forecast taking into account the possible effects of the current movement or proceedings that are going on with the Attorney General and the state?
No. So just sorry to be so abrupt. No, Mayor. It doesn't account for that. And the reason being, I think, is we're kind of working through the details of it, is even the worst case scenario of this process would be generally past the impact of this fiscal year. So this fiscal year is June 30th. Sort of the worst case scenario, which is probably not the most realistic scenario right now, would seem to push it out a little bit beyond that at any rate. So this is really just from A couple of things. They've done a lot of construction over there. Their parking lot, they've redone the parking lot with solar panels, which obviously impacts if you're coming into play there. You may not want to deal with it. They've done tens of $1 millions of upgrades inside the facility over the last, 6 to 12 months that has impacted it. And also, geopolitical events and economic events that occur outside of the United States impact a lot of the clientele that play there at the bicycle. So that number of 17 million, when I got here in 2019, would have seemed like a great number. It would be 3 million, 4 million a year more than normal. But the way things were going, as the economy was moving and some of these other geopolitical things weren't occurring, we saw numbers that were much, much higher than that. So this seems to be more of a realistic number going forward. The final thing I would say though, from an optimistic perspective is they will be the only card room with completely covered parking. And in the summertime, hopefully that would potentially draw some more business activity to this particular card room, because if you're going to be there for 3 or 4 hours and it's 90 degrees outside, you'll be under covered parking, or if it's raining out, things of that nature. So there's some upside potential there just from their general operations outside of the Attorney General issues.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Thank you so much for the presentation, Manny, and thank you, City Manager, for your input, on a lot of this. I'm curious to see, and it's similar to this slide. I think it might have been the previous slide, or it was in regards to the funds from the casino. I know in this slide we're projecting that right now we're at 17 million mid-year, but assuming that the Attorney General's regulations go into effect, I think they gave us a deadline of late May or early May. We're projecting that the revenue is going to drop from 17 to 13 million. What are we doing to try to stop that?
I maybe there's a lot going on from a number of different angles. I would defer to Dr. De Leon Sanchez, because she's the chair of the JPA and our representative, that she can probably fill you in on some more details on it. And I could tell you some internal stuff outside of that as well.
So publicly right now, what's happening is that the card rooms are getting together. There's 2 different associations. There's the CGC and the CCC that are all part of all the card rooms throughout California. And several of them have come together and they are going to sue. So that's step 1, right? The card room suing. So based on that lawsuit and how many of them are able to collaborate together to file that lawsuit, then they're going to start looking at the cities, and the cities might follow suit and do a separate lawsuit than that lawsuit. So that's where we're at right now. It's difficult because obviously the way that the AG did it was not transparent at all. And if we were to look at the timeline, he filed December 23rd, right before the end of the business day, knowing that nobody was going to get informed that that was filed. Over 900 comments that were submitted during the 2-day hearing, none of those comments were acknowledged. They were embedded within his submission of those regulations, and he basically rejected every single comment. Over 900 something comments. He rejected those. So that's another thing, right? And there's supposed to be a 15-day period where we as card rooms, we as people that comment are supposed to be acknowledged of that. That didn't happen. So I'm giving you guys some of the facts, and I don't want to disclose everything, because what's happening right now is we're trying to find where the gaps are in that the process happened with the AG, because it wasn't transparent. So being able to identify those gaps and counter that, that's what's going to help. So there's a lot of moving parts right now. There's a lot of people involved trying to do that, but because we're in a public meeting, I don't want to disclose everything.
Thank you for that.
And Councilmember Chavez, just from an internal perspective, you know, the department head team's aware of everything that's going on here with this. You know, and the hard fact of it is we should always be prepared. We've seen the card room just close. Right? It isn't like something that's always been hypothetical. We've experienced it. And, you know, we had to figure out ways to pretty quickly cut costs in the order of 7.5%, 10%, somewhere in there. So the department heads, you know, and we have to walk a fine line here too, because you don't want to cause a panic that isn't necessary. You know, if it's necessary, it's necessary, but you don't want to cause a panic that's not necessary. Once we get down to sort of city manager, department head, and down to staff level, we're in the middle of labor negotiations with our groups and that. And so what we're doing just behind the scenes is what we always do, but with a little more focus, is just looking at our departments to see if we had to make cuts, or where would we do it, how would we do it, what would the timelines look like. And that's why we're watching all these numbers. We're always watching them closely, but we're watching them even more closely. And really that fund balance is so important because we're trying to close the $2 million shortfall we have that has nothing to do with the Attorney General. The sales tax measure would be very helpful with that. The work that we're doing on the cannabis tax would be very helpful, and we would expect if those go as we hope they would go, we can kind of fill that $2 million gap in. And then the next step would be, well, what if something happens with the card room? And that's when your general fund comes in, and you've got a bit of a parachute, but you don't have a lot of time, 6 months, 12 months, to kind of get your numbers back in line and, you know, kind of create a new version of level of services and then move forward in that kind of with the way things would look at that point.
To add to that regarding, you know, talking about the timeline, the card rooms have until May 31st to submit the new draft regulations based on what was submitted. And then June 1st, ideally, they would go into effect where blackjack wouldn't be allowed, and then the rotation would have to change. Cities wouldn't fill it until July 1st, right? As far as the revenue, why? Because we're always on the back end receiving the funds a month later. That's like worst case right now. And if you notice, we're already in February, so that's just a few months away. Everybody's working really hard so that timeline that we have right now doesn't happen. So that it's pushed back 6 months more, that it's pushed back a year more. But that just depends on what we're able to do. For example, tomorrow, our card room will be up in Sacramento talking to legislators, you know, doing their part as well, although we went last week. So there's efforts constantly happening right now on the back end, trying to prolong this and not meet those deadlines.
This is more of a theoretical question. Assuming the draft legislation is implemented, approximately how many percentage points would we get affected? Just using the other numbers as reference as well.
Kind of as far as what the revenues would decrease. I mean, obviously they wouldn't know for certain, because I think it would cause a big shakeup in the industry. Maybe some of the card rooms don't even exist. They're invested so much money into the card room here that I think that puts that card room in our card room, the bicycle, in a good position. But if you use the numbers, you know, with what we've talked, it's a pretty broad range. So it could be 20 to 40%, somewhere in there. So on the numbers we have now, that would be on the low end, 3.5, 4 million. On the high end would be somewhere in the 8 or 9 million range. The other revenues we have wouldn't be impacted by that, by the card room. So it would really be isolated to that. Saw the general fund has about 17.9 million. Not all of it's cash, but that would buy you, if it was the worst case scenario and it's 8 million, you wouldn't want to do this, but that shows you'd have 24 months before you would say, okay, we've used up all our fund balance, we need to make cuts. But the plan would generally be, and it's probably not worth doing all the detail work for a number of reasons. But generally speaking, you do a glide path. You would not let yourself get to it in 2 years where you have no fund balance. So you do the typical things, hiring freezes, look to see where you're spending general fund revenues versus grant revenues. There's no point in cutting a service that's funded by a specific revenue or by a grant revenue, because you cut the service and the revenue goes away. There's really no net. So you'd be looking at your general fund cost, but it would be significant. $4 million just from a personnel perspective is about 38 full-time city employees. We have about 157, give or take, full-time city employees. So it would be a significant effort, but the fund balance would help to, reduce that impact and how severe you'd have to go about getting to the new version. But obviously revenues always equal services. There's no way around that. So if you have a cut of $48 million in revenues, you'll be looking at a cut of services in the $4 to $8 million range, and you try to get efficiencies in there. So, if you cut $6 million, in a perfect world, you only lose $5 million worth of services. And so there would be difficult decisions to make. None of them are any decisions anybody wants to make. There's no service that the city currently provides that sounds like a good one to stop providing. But I think, you've got professional staff. I think our employees are really good to work with from the labor standpoint. And then obviously staff is bringing items to the council, and council bringing up items that all serve the purpose of making sure that the residents and the businesses and the stakeholders in the city are getting the services at the level that the council, deems to make sense. And so the public hearing item earlier was a big feature of that, and there are other items coming up in the future for the council to decide on as well.
Thank you, Mr. O'Kelly. And also, considering a previous topic that we briefly touched upon is the water system, right? Roughly, if we were to throw a number on it, its value would range at around.
Well, just looking at two similar size systems, and
Mhm.
and the market could go up or down by some percentage, but it seemed like about the $18 million range, plus or minus, was what we saw for two other water systems that sold somewhere in the last 3 to 5 years of similar size. There is another water system that right now is, I think, almost fully consummated with in another neighboring city. I think the number, Bernie, on that, was that in the 15 million range? So a little bit less, but same size water system. So I guess we're going to go really broad with it. And I don't want to undersell it. In case anybody's listening, I think ours is worth 25 million at least, but somewhere in that range, 18 million is about right.
Thank you so much, Mr. O'Kelly. Any other questions from my fellow colleagues?
Yes, Mayor, if I may, I have a couple of questions, as I'm just doing a bit of digging, just trying to, think outside of the box with a lot of, our ways of trying to generate and, feed this, bridge this gap. And I think it's important to also distinguish. I know that city manager is mentioning that we're not sounding the alarm off, yet. But I also do want to recognize the moment that we just did also declare a fiscal emergency. So I think, I think it's important that we evaluate all of our tools in our toolbox. I think, I don't know if it's true, or I would want to know more so updated. We had talked about spaces here in the city. I know obviously we talked about the water system. That's obviously an asset of the city. We also have land assets such as parks and community spaces, et cetera. Obviously we have a golf course too. But I'm curious, with the casino, I know that there's a portion of the casino that's also being leased to them, right? When was the last time we updated that lease, and then I guess we'll follow up to that. I mean, obviously I know that this is going to have an impact not only on us, but obviously an impact on their, sort of stream of income as a casino. But are they, to the extent, also borderline bankruptcy? Or, I mean, how is their situation? How do they describe this impact?
Well, I think so. First off, the current owners just bought the card room 4 or 5 years ago. They've invested tens of millions of dollars. This isn't something new, right? The Attorney General's rules, these rules that are here now that look the same as the ones in 19 and probably the ones from 25 years ago. So I think, without being too specific, that you know, they're positioning themselves to be able to withstand whatever happens here. The lease that we have is all of the parking lot on the south side of the building. So where people, when you go to play or go to eat or whatever, you would eat. And then the further south on the other side of Priory is where the employees park. Generally, that hasn't been looked at to be developed while the card room's operating at the levels it's operating now, because the impact of developing that parking would far outweigh the financial benefit of what would be there relative to how much you're impacting negatively the card room. But obviously, if all of a sudden the card room was operating at 60% capacity from actual people visiting, then it would make sense for us to look at that parking lot there, and even for the card room, there'd be no need for them to continue making a lease payment on a parking lot that they're not using. You know, so if they only needed 50% of the parking, that would free up 50% of that parking for development for some other type of retail. It's interesting though, because we've looked at some numbers, even with the rosiest of pictures, and you know, it wouldn't come close to covering a shortfall, you know, of 25-40%. But it would be, you know, maybe cover a quarter of that to a third of it potentially if you got a very high quality retail operation or something of that nature in that area, or if you do some kind of a land lease or something with a developer. But that is something that we've always looked at in the whole time I've been here. The numbers never pan out even close. But if all of a sudden they don't have the traffic and they don't have the revenues, the economics would shift in that perspective. And then kind of another item you mentioned, the reason about sounding an alarm or a panic is it just has some negative impacts that aren't necessary, you know, with let's say with employees and things like that, where you'd hate to start losing good talented people that are overreacting and leaving and going to work in some other city. If we needed to sound that alarm, we would, but I don't think we're in that position, and we're being open with what we're saying here. The fact that we're in negotiations, you know, this will all be watched if it's not already watched currently. But there are the things that you will be asked to look at as a council if the Attorney General's rules go into place. And again, I think we're looking at worst case scenario, probably kind of a 6-month out, give or take, and kind of a more reasonable scenario, maybe more like 12 months to 24 months and maybe further, depending on how judges see things and things of that nature. So, but obviously the city does have, for 2.5 square miles, there's, you know, the Public Works Yard, there's City Hall, there's Veterans Park, Ford Park, Marlowe Park, Darwell Park, Gallant Park, Julia Asmus, the Neighborhood Youth Center. There are probably opportunities in there to do really cool things that eliminate costs, that still create some different service that's beneficial to the community. Woodworth House, I forgot to mention that one as well. And then random parking lots and small lots here and there. But these are all things that, you know, I think council should be thinking about as you're around, you know, as you're living your life in Bell Gardens and looking at city facilities and property and things like that. And it's definitely things behind the scenes that we're looking at, just to make sure that we have numbers available and information available without going too far down into the process to cause any kind of alarm or anything.
Yeah, thank you for that, City Manager. I wanted to, you know, when I've been mentioning the parking lot for the casino, I mean, obviously development of that, and I know that there's a lot of interest in that plot, you know, of land to sort of develop it. But I was more so trying to angle it as far as, you know, obviously we leased this to them. When was the last time we increased that lease on them?
So the lease increase is based on the agreement. I think every year it goes up. It's based on a CPI, a factor. It's a long-term lease. Off the top of my head, I will say it's in the multiple decades, since I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but it's into a multi-decade lease that I think if things continue on operating where they're operating at the level they're operating, or some new version where maybe the money's not as much, but the volume and the traffic's still the same, I would expect that lease continues on. If there was some other degradation of their revenues and things like that, they would probably be the first ones to say, hey, we can't afford the lease. The dollar amount is nearly $2 million a year, that lease revenue we get from that parking lot. But it's a decades out lease agreement. I hesitate to say the number of decades, but it's a significant amount.
So in case if we wanted to increase that, we'd have to notify them decades ahead before we can even go into effect.
Yeah, the increase is already built in well into the decades. And it is a significant increase just in the time I've been here. I think it's gone up probably in the tune of around 250,000 a year in additional revenues. And there's no maintenance cost for us associated with it. So it's pure extra revenue to cover other costs that go up due to inflation and things.
Certainly. To follow up with that, with the casino lease, I know one of the points that we brought or that we're having the discussion is, well, look, if we try to do something with that space, it could potentially have drastic impact in the sort of traffic that the casino is going to get in terms of people not wanting to go there or, and the idea, I don't know how, but I can see to an extent the connection. Now they have shaded parking, assuming that, they're the only one. If if I want to go play blackjack or something like that, I can go there because I know that I'm going to have it fresh. And I guess maybe there was a science to that. Maybe there's like a correlation that, hey, if there's structured parking, we can have more increased traffic. But I think the point that the thing that I'm seeing is, and I know that it's based on geopolitical and the big players come into play, but I don't know if necessarily the big players, I mean, we could have all the traffic in the world there, but if they're not the big players, right? I'm trying to, would we rather have a lot of small players that are, filling up that parking lot, or would we rather get the big fish that could potentially, we can still meet our needs as a city, and they can also all meet their needs. But I'm trying to, I don't know if I'm making my point across, but that's where I'm trying to get at, where, let's say, it frees up that space for us to then be able to do something else with it, or and I think that there's like a bigger thing of them just not being able to garner or gather those big players, right? And maybe I don't know if it's just us. Maybe I think every other card room is probably in the same position. I wouldn't know, but I'm curious to see. That's why I was getting at to the point of how are they doing financially, right? You go to the casino, you see it, it's nice. I mean, you got Ferraris, 3 of them parked literally right in front of you. I don't know how the card room is packed. It's usually always bustling, right? They open new restaurants every other time, right? And this is just the optics of when you walk into that card room. So, I just want to make sure that we're all sort of receiving the same information. On another note, I know that other neighbors, like Southgate, are doing the UUT tax, right? The utility user tax. Is that something that the city has explored? And if we haven't, is this something that we plan to potentially bring in the future? Obviously, I know we just proposed to put a sales tax increase this time around, but what would be a difference between going that route as to going what we're doing, or simultaneously, maybe cities have done both? Just kind of curious on that.
We can bring an item on a utility user tax to talk about at the council. The one difference I'd say between the two, utility user tax is going to be paid 100% by the user of the utility, which is going to be your residents and your businesses in Bell Gardens. Whereas a sales tax, there's a significant percentage, especially when you have an El Super and a Food for Less, and a Ross and a Marshalls and an Applebee's, that for every dollar of extra sales tax you get, the residents and stakeholders of the city of Bell Gardens have probably only paid 60 cents on every one of those dollars. Whereas on a utility users tax, it's going to be 100%. Whether that's paid by the landlord or the renter, it's going to be factored in there somewhere. So that's where I think, at least in the time I've been here, it's looked at the sales tax has been a better option from value for the residents and the businesses that are in Bell Gardens. But we can bring an item to talk more on a potential for utility users tax or an increase.
No worries. I was just curious because I know that I've seen Southgate, and I know that they've kind of in the same position as we are. But I was curious to see how much that potentially could generate as compared to this sales tax. And I know in the past, prior to even me being on the council at one point I think explored doing a TOT tax, and I remember that meeting where the card room showed up and was like, where did this all come from? Along with a lot of the motels, hotel operators. right? I remember that was like prior to the pandemic. So again, just trying to figure out what other opportunities in terms of engagement or support for obviously the city's condition.
Just wanted to add, Southgate is already at the maximum 10.75, so they can't bring a sales tax measure without legislative approval. So they don't have the options that we have, which is probably why they're looking at other options.
Got it. Do we, I don't know. I was gonna say about if Stephanie knew how much that could potentially generate, but do we have an idea?
Depends on the city.
Got it. Okay. A follow-up on another, in regards to, the conversation. I know we brought forward a fee study in the past. I don't know what's the status on the fee study, if our fees are up to date. Can that potentially help us bridge these gaps at all?
Yes, I think on the fees that predominantly would help on this would be the community development fees, so permit, plan fees. There's some things we're working on right now as far as that we can adopt as far as the county fee schedule that I think we're bringing here shortly. I'm looking, community development director. When were we bringing that to council?
The plan was probably next month to bring the county's adopted fee schedule for building and plan check.
So that's something that we can do quickly where we're allowed to adopt the county's fee schedule that's significantly higher than ours. And then there's still our own fees. We just need to bring it back to do the study on it. It's just been probably priority 4 on what we're trying to do to fill the hole here.
Got it. Thank you for that. The final thing is probably one of the biggest outliers, and I know it's been very contentious, not only for our council, but in the previous council was cannabis, right? There was this big sort of hope of light that cannabis was sort of going to support our city and diversify the budget. And it's been, I think, well over going on 2 years, give or take, right, since we started this process. And we have about 6 licenses that are out. Where are we in the status with cannabis? And I know that there's one operator who's up and running. And I mean, I guess to an extent, they've been a good steward in the sense that they paid up their fair share. But what's the status with the other cannabis operators, and do they have hopes of, get up and running, or in terms of their contributions to, what was signed in their development agreement?
Councilmember Chavez, we're kind of getting away from the topic here. That's more specific to cannabis, which is a separate item that would have to be agendized.
But doesn't that contribute to the budget?
You can narrow your question as to how much money we've received from cannabis, but not actually where they're at, what their status is for each one of them.
Okay. City manager, how much money have we received from cannabis?
For this fiscal year, we've received approximately 600,000 to 800,000. We are expecting, just based on the fact that there are 6 development agreements, we should receive at minimum another $600,000 that would be due in the month of January. And if not received, which has not been received, we would actively and aggressively seek for it to be received or take actions to revocate the applicable development agreements or CUPs. So we're in the process of attempting to retrieve that revenue that's supposed to be paid currently. That would be at least another $600,000. There's just an annual payment whether a cannabis retailer or operator is up and running or not.
Can you clarify just to make sure? Do we have a deadline for that?
Our deadline for receipt of the $100,000 that we established with our demand was 15 days from the day that we made the demand, which I believe was Thursday. I don't recall what the date was. That okay? So 15 days from last Thursday. So
Got it.
probably about 10 days from now.
Okay. If possibly we could have an item to the council for the next agenda just to see where we are as a whole and just kind of, obviously we can't dive a little bit more deeper, but if we can bring that item then for the next meeting, if that's okay with legal counsel.
Yes.
Thank you. That's all my questions. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Chavez. Any other questions or comments in regards to item 12.3? And if not, I would like to entertain a motion. Will second. City Clerk, will you please conduct a roll call vote?
Yes, thank you. Members of the council and successor agency, Barcina,
Yes.
Councilmember Chavez.
Aye.
Councilwoman Sanchez,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Guillen,
Yes.
and Mayor de la Rosa.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you so much. Now moving on to City Council successor agency member comments. Floor is open.
Yes. So first of all, I want to thank staff for putting together this option of the sales tax. It's reminiscent of the previous sales tax that we did, and to me, it's like almost a no-brainer because we have to secure those funds for local control, right? For us to be able to decide on that. So I think it's an easy one. I'm pretty confident that the community is gonna want to vote on it, but we'll see what happens. I also want to report on recent activity from Hub Cities. We had a meeting with the Southeast Los Angeles County Work Development Force. And the reason for that meeting was to have them explore the opportunity of sort of working together with Hub Cities because they're sort of a larger entity and they will be able to help us potentially, especially with grant acquisition and things like that. So they put it on the agenda to vote on whether or not they were going to explore it, and they decided yes. So that's a huge step to having this option. And just so you guys know, the board there is Jeff Wood from City of Lakewood. He's the vice mayor. Then we have Sonny Santa Ynez from the City of Bellflower. He's also the mayor. Renee Trevino from City of Artesia. Linda Johnson from City of Cerritos. Hector Sosa from City of Downey. Dandy De Paula from City of Hawaiian Gardens. Tony Ayala, City of Norwalk, council member, and then Isabel Aguayo from City of Paramount. And the reason why I'm reading these names is because if you guys know them personally, if you have a relationship with them, you know, we have to advocate for our community. Hub Cities has been providing our residents an essential service, and we want to make sure that we continue to allow this entity, Hub Cities, to thrive. So it could be very helpful for you guys to, if you have relationships with the board members, to maybe connect with them and just make sure you're advocating for your communities. So another thing I wanted to say is I wanted to see if staff, excuse me, if staff or the council will be interested in maybe putting out some basic info regarding the Caltrans grant and what's coming to the Planning Commission, just for informational purposes, because I've seen a lot of noise on social media, a lot of assumptions that are coming from sources that are not really official. So I think it will be a great service if there's something we can put out there with basic info about this grant and the planning that's been going on, and perhaps maybe talking about the process that will follow from here on, right? Because I know that a lot of people are worried that things are going to start getting built all of a sudden, and I know that we're not there yet, right? It's a long process ahead, and I think people are a little bit concerned just because of what they hear, right? I don't want us to be very reactive about it, but I do want us to do something if we're able to, just to keep our community informed. Other than that, that's all I have. Thank you so much. I apologize for being late. I had a little incident. I had to go to the emergency room, but everything is good. So thank you for waiting, and glad to be back.
For my comments, first and foremost, thank you so much for this very productive meeting. Thank you, City Manager and Manny for presenting, Manny twice for presenting the first one and presenting the second one. I appreciate that. You know, it's been a difficult, you know, past couple of weeks. I think for everyone. I've had the opportunity to engage a lot with our seniors these past couple of events. I went to the karaoke event this last Friday. On Thursday, we had the billiards tournament, 8-ball tournament too. Just all around, I feel very peaceful when I'm around our community. I also had the opportunity to attend the art and yard sale this weekend on Friday. You know, and just to kind of, you know, before we ramp up to the summer events, right? It's I'm trying to think of other forms of engagement with the city, with the residents. I also I know we have our 5K coming up. I think that's by the time the next council meeting, we should have already done the 5K. So it's March 7th. And I think our next meeting is what, March 10th, 9th, March 9th. So I'm participating in the 5K. I'm excited for the 5K. I encourage everybody else to. Marco's gonna do it. Okay, we're ready to go. You got your running shoes? Huaraches. And we're not talking about the food. Apparently there's a food called huarache too. Yes, so I'm excited for that. It's one of my favorite events. 7:30. And we're gonna have a good time. I'm also looking forward to the summer for when we have all of our aquatics programming, right? I think that's gonna be huge. Today I was in Ford Park. I was taking a stroll out there and I got to see the pool and just kind of like be in that space. And it's crazy to think that it's there and we're just waiting for the heat to really hit us and we can be out there and kind of have a good time, while at the same time also, you know, with the World Cup and everything appearing, which is exciting. With that said, I want to just briefly mention, I know the county obviously has a measure ballot on this on the upcoming, you know, just the same thing as we are with our own sales tax. And there was a lot of engagement around the county's effort to put this on the ballot. You know, I know I got personally reached out to. I know I connected, I think, our city staff to this. I think it was Supervisor Mitchell's office who was sort of spearheading this. And I want to just mention that, you know, what the county's doing and sort of, you know, filling that gap from the federal government's lack of you know, bless you. You know, with the impacts of HR1 it's gonna have major impacts in the cities like ours, right? Where in our community, I think just based on the facts that they gave me, 35% of our community is on Medi-Cal, right? We have 7 community clinics here in the city of Bell Gardens, right? So we're potentially vulnerable in terms of the impacts of the HR1 and you know, in the endeavor that the county's trying to take on by doing their own measure to fill in that gap so our residents don't get impacted. So I want to acknowledge that moment. But to Councilmember Barcena's point, I think that, you know, as we approach with the same sort of standard of wanting to help out our residents, we acknowledge that reality and that data about, hey, if this does happen, if a community clinic does close in our community, we can use some of those funds to sort of fill that gap for them, right? Whether that be transportation to get them to the other clinics nearby, whether it's determining, you know, how can we connect them to the best provider, et cetera, because that was sort of the initiative that the county was taking on by passing their own sales tax, right? I think it's important that we bring that up. So with that said, again, I appreciate the opportunity of engagement, the presentations, the meeting, and I'll pass it back to the mayor or Councilwoman Dr. Francine Sanchez.
Thank you. Thank you to staff. I know it's always difficult to put together the budget and have guesstimations and not really being able to predict during these times. But like it was mentioned, the alarm's not being sound. I know that we're constantly fighting hard right now, especially the biggest impact that we would have is the regulations of the AG. So rest assured that everybody involved is doing what we can to prolong this as much as possible. So I don't think we need to overly worry. Do we need to worry? Yes, of course, we always need to worry about money, right? Being sure that we're providing all the resources that we can for our community and making sure we're taking care of our staff. But just know that we are working really hard to make sure that doesn't happen. I'd also like to request an ad hoc committee meeting for the Aquatic Center to talk about programming. I know that we had recently discussed when the Aquatic Center opened that we were going to give it a few months to see the different programming happening there, whether we have to revise it, you know, and things of that nature. So if we can schedule a meeting so we can go ahead and talk about the programming for that, please. Other than that, that's it. Thank you so much.
And very briefly, I just want to thank you, staff, and our Community Family Service Center for all the services they have been providing to our families over the past few weeks, months. I know Mayor and I met this past Thursday with families affected by ICE, which you guys have helped out a lot. So thank you so very much. And thank you, Dr. Francis, Councilwoman Dr. Francis, for your efforts in Sacramento.
Thank you so much. I want to thank my colleagues, our legal team, and staff for such a productive meeting. Um, After, some rainy days, I did have an opportunity to chat with a couple of residents, and they're concerned about low volumes of water drainage in their block, and this is through Colmar and Ludell. I'll be in contact with city manager and our director of public works with more information regarding this incident. It's been ongoing for decades, and would like to explore some options to help them. Another thing, I would also like to provide direction to see if fireworks stands for fundraising purposes is a feasible option regarding the timeline for this year. And on another note, I would also like to explore the possibility of hosting a council meeting at the park sometime during the summer. Bring the community, to the park and just to kick off the summer. Something to potentially gather more engagement and see how that would look like. Yeah, so just exploring the possibility of that. See logistically if we could host a meeting at a park, that would be great to kick off the summer and its programming. But anywho, that concludes my comments. And if there's no objection by the members of the City Council, I will now adjourn the City Council Successor Agency Joint Meeting at 8:06 p.m.